come over and show me how white your teeth are from brushing? Oh, dude, you're doing a great job. You're doing a great job, buddy. Oh, yeah.
Well, the cool thing about it, though, when I took a step back and I thought about it, was all the interests that I had, whether it was athletics, everything that you learn from that, like the drive, the discipline, you do things the best that you can, all the way to even math. Like, I loved math. It's all coming together to create things. Because when we make things, I'll measure and I'll figure out the formula of stuff and try to actually figure out mathematically how to make this exact. So everything that was in my past came together to this point to make stuff.
Flourish is such a special movement of women. Gosh, the events that we have, the Spirit of God that fills the room every single time, the creativity. I know that women show up and they just feel so full of value and just full of vision for their future, and dreams are planted in our hearts at these incredible nights and conference. There is nothing like Flourish. The heart of Flourish really has always been to place value on women. We want them to know you are loved, you are chosen, you are worth it. And I think when they come into the environment of the atrium with all the decor and the excellence that is brought, they feel that. They know I am valued and someone sees me as special. So when we start planning an event or conference, we'll start with just a seed of an idea, and then all of a sudden, Jess will take this idea to a whole nother level. She'll stay awake all night dreaming of what it could be, these ideas, and she'll come in, I'm like, how did you even think of that? She's so detailed and so full of excellence, it's incredible. She will sketch all these designs of what the atrium could look like or what different parts of the decor will look like. And then she has everything so well laid out that we all come in, just like, tell us what to do. And then we will just all start working on these things. And we're like, we don't even know what we're doing, but she told us to, and we know that her vision's gonna be something beautiful. And at the end of it, it is the most beautiful, incredible design. It is amazing.
I was born in Española, New Mexico, to two very young parents. My mom was 20 and my dad was 22, but I didn't know anything different. They loved me with all their hearts. They tried to provide the best that they could for me. And the greatest thing about growing up there was that we were next door neighbors to my dad's parents. So I spent a lot of time with my grandma and grandpa. Grandma Virginia loved to garden, and she was an excellent cook. So I think that's where a lot of my first passions just for making things began. My mom had to go back to work when I was only 4 weeks old, and so Grandma Virginia took care of me. And sometimes at night, I'd spend the night and I'd ask her, Grandma, can I have a snack? I'm hungry. And she taught me how to actually go to the kitchen. She had a little stool for me. She had a pan. She had me pull out the lard, and she had me fry my own egg. So it got to the point to where after doing it a few times, she had me do it on my own. She would tell me, all right, go get your stuff. So I'd grab my stool, I'd grab the pan, the eggs, the lard, and I could flip an egg without cracking the yolk. Yeah. And as I got older, I still had an interest in cooking. So my mom would have me make dinner. Oftentimes I was 8 or 9 years old, but I like to actually physically make things as well. And I think some of the best times were when I had projects to make for school. So I remember when I was in elementary school, I had to make a robot. And so I went with my dad to his work, and his ideas, his mind just runs. And my mind kind of just runs like that too. Where he said, okay, well, we can use this plastic bin here, and I have some of this tubing that's metal, and we can use that for the legs, and we'll run 2x4s in between it, and we'll cover it with the plastic metal, and that'll be the legs, and we'll have the arms coming out of it. And for the feet, let's put your rollerblades. So it had my rollerblades, it had legs, it had a plastic bin that opened up that I could store things. It had a robot head. It was the coolest thing. And I remember showing up to school and being like, this is awesome. You know, we wheeled my giant robot in, and the class was impressed, and I was too. Lumber, and it would show up. Look at this, the corners went off. My dad was always the creative parent. My mom was the one who encouraged me to do my best. Like if I did something and it wasn't done right, whether it was cleaning or even homework, I had to do it over. But my dad was the one who had a passion just for making things. Like my dad can make anything. From that passion, he started his own company, developing and creating lift kits and suspensions for trucks. And I remember when I was little watching him draw sketches of these trucks, just thinking how cool and how great that was. And so I think that's where a lot of my interest in making things began to spark as well.
Let's go for a walk.
Other way, go! And I'd always had an interest in math and science, so I thought pharmacy would be an excellent major for me. So I spent the first 2 years taking all the prereqs to apply to pharmacy school without actually stepping foot in a pharmacy. And during that time, I was actually throwing the javelin at UNM as well. And I ended up hurting my shoulder, so I had to quit after that, after those first 2 years. And then I decided, I don't think I really want to do pharmacy. Yeah. So I changed to dental hygiene for a year, and I worked in my dentist's office the next summer, and I hated it. So then in my 4th year of college, I changed my degree to biology and chemistry with the hopes of possibly going on to PA school or med school. So I finished college, and during college, actually, like the greatest thing about being on the track team at UNM was I met my husband. You know, and during that time, I started coaching high school volleyball and high school track. So it was great. You know, I'd show up for work. I would hang out with 300 students a day, visit with them, get to know them. We had practice. And then I had Lucy. So now poor little Lucy, she was sick for months and we didn't really know it. Like people thought something was kind of off, but they were hesitant to tell me that because I was a first-time parent and they didn't want to overstep their boundaries. But she would scream. Like she was up about 8 times every night just screaming. During the day, there were some days where I couldn't do anything. I had to hold her the entire day, but I'd take her to the doctor, and the doctor said that she was perfectly fine. So at her 4-month checkup, her doctor told me that I needed to start to introduce solid foods, otherwise the window was going to close, and that she was okay, even though I gave him this long list of symptoms. So a couple months went along, she didn't want anything to do with food, and at 6 months, I took her back. And the pediatrician at that point told me pretty much that the window of time for her to eat was closing, and pretty much that I wasn't being a good parent. So I went home devastated. You know, I hadn't slept longer than an hour and a half for over 6 months. I felt like everything was being taken away. I was so used to being around so many people. And then I was just at home, you know, with a crying baby.
In addition to that, I was going through, at the time, undiagnosed ADD and anxiety, which was putting a much larger stress on Jess, in addition to having a newborn. She ended up being pretty isolated, and it would just be her and Lucy at the house, you know, all day, every day. And going from just being a leader in front of a lot of different students and athletes and parents to just feeling like you're by yourself, just you and a newborn, just being able to deal with that transition. You know, I don't know very many people that could have gone through what she went through and came out alive on the other side.
And around that same time, we had a focus conference with John Gray. I don't know if you all remember him, but we brought Lucy upstairs to meet him and to say goodbye one night. And he asked if he could pray over her. And I'll never forget that night. He prayed for her digestive tract, which was something, strange because we didn't know what was going on. And that night, I remember going home and not sleeping and just thinking and researching and praying and asking God, what's going on? And God actually spoke to me that night. I remember him telling me that he loved me enough to take everything away. Because you see, even though all those things were great, all that time I was spending investing in kids was great and wonderful, I was still praying with him, or praying to God, but I wasn't reading and growing. So I think God used all of that time, that rough season, to refine me and to show me what's important in life, ultimately, It's great to love people, it's great to minister to people, but you have to take care of yourself too.
I regret the amount of stress that I put on my wife through that time. But that whole time through, even at the lowest points, she was just a rock. And you could tell no matter how exhausted she was or how just spiritually and physically worn out she was, that she was still going to be steady and still moving forward. And just the physical and spiritual strength that she's had through all of this. And looking back on it now, we both grew a lot together and personally, spiritually through that season. And it did come to an end finally, and we were able to move on. But just watching Jess and her strength and her ability just to keep moving on and not wavering through that time, I think just was something God was doing in her life to really build her and strengthen her foundation.
And I ended up going to a Flourish night, and they asked for signups for volunteers. And they had a couple of different teams. One was a decor team, I think one was food, and I don't remember what else. And I'd like to make things. I'd always had an interest, but I'd never had the time, so I decided to sign up for that team. And so I signed up, and a couple of months later, we ended up having an event, and I got to go and meet wonderful women that I probably would have never met if I didn't sign up for that. And that was about 6.5 years ago. So as time went on, it was great and wonderful because we found out that each of us had different gifts. Barb is an excellent seamstress, and she's a workhorse. She'll show up to do anything. There were so many great people there. Georgia, Jen, Adrian, Brittany, Charla. We all worked together to make these beautiful, amazing things. We need people. And I think that's what this ministry has showed me, and especially during that time. I think I started off with my motivation being just wanting to serve, but now my motivation had changed because I desperately wanted to give people an escape from reality. I wanted to give them a vacation, and it's rewarding. I think when you walk in, I don't like to be on stage or in front of people, but it's nice to kind of look from behind the scenes and watch people's faces when they see something. And especially now, when we make stuff, I think we want you to experience it. It's cool and great to see something there, but I want you to feel it. I want it to be a part of the service for you. I want you, when you come in for Flourish, to just have that vacation mindset. It's great to have little whimsical things, like how we had cotton candy and clouds and rainbows. Those are things that you typically associate with little girls, but I think as grown women, we like that kind of stuff too. I'm very thankful that I've had the opportunity, and that people like Mandy and Kay and even Marion have trusted me enough to actually be able to do this. Because, there are often times that I do stop and I step back and I think, I am so blessed that I get the opportunity to just use my imagination and my creativity and just make something. Make something big and grand that I would have never had the opportunity to do before. So I'm thankful for what I get to do. I hope people enjoy it. I do hope that they feel special, because I don't do it for applaud or praise. And actually, this whole video, I don't like to be in front of the camera. I like to be behind the scenes. I do it for you, So I hope you enjoy it.